let's go ahead and dive right into the book of Boba Fett. John, why don't you go ahead and give us your thoughts on Book of Boba Fett?
Uh, this is a hard one for me. I was trying to figure that out today as to like what makes Boba Fett good. Mostly just because like the story, while I do love the writer's intent of showing the Ronin go Shogun, I uh I really did not understand why I cared to watch it at all. Until I really thought about it, what I came to understand is that if we all remember Star Wars coming up, Boba Fett was the first Anakin in the story that like we knew his whole story before we knew the whole Anakin story because we watched Boba Fett watch his dad die. And then suddenly he's, becomes this legendary bounty hunter. And so I thought that was like it's just more like he was a kid when we were kids, so his story was supposed to matter, but overall I think visually it was gorgeous. What about you? What was
Yeah,
your take on Boba Fett?
so yeah, I definitely thought that it was not worth the time when all was said and done. I I felt as empty as I did after Rise of Skywalker. I thought that while I am a sucker for fan service, and I certainly don't have a problem with a lot of fan service elements, it seems they just use this as a show to just put out the most fan service they could, and didn't focus on what the story or the intent of this show was. It really just ends where it begins, pretty much as pointless as it started. And so for me, there are a lot of good things about the show. I agree. I did like a lot of the visuals. I like the use of puppets and the use of practical effects. Working with the special effects was a huge strong point. There's just a lot of what the show didn't seem to make sense. Like it felt like it couldn't figure out what it wanted to be.
I I really understand that. And I actually had another question for you based on the you said you feel empty after watching it like you did after the third or the I guess the sequel
Yeah, the third
prequel
sequel trilogy
or
movie.
sequel trilogy. There we go. What would you say is the missing piece? Like what about it do you feel like it was really missing in terms of like what would give you that hearty feeling like you enjoyed it afterwards?
What so literally we start the show with this image that I've got on display here. Well, it doesn't even start there. It starts at the end of Mandalorian season 2 when he whacks Bib Fortuna and takes Jabba's old throne. And from there, we're left with okay, now we're gonna see we're finally gonna see this bounty hunter mysterious character that we've been wanting for a long time. And he's going to finally maybe be the badass that everyone thought that he was or that he was supposed to be. And instead he doesn't even seem to know what his motives are half the time. Um and so I don't know what I'm supposed to make of this story when by the end of it he and Fennec have that conversation about, well, what are we gonna do now? And it's okay, what are we gonna do now? Well, what was the point of me watching this entire episode to begin with? We have a comment in the chat from Relentlessly Relentless. Says, "Up, hello, Relentlessly Relentless. Welcome to the show. Currently talking Boba Fett, and I also meant to. There we go. Make this look like a somewhat professional broadcast. I just felt the show overall didn't really know what it was trying to do, and apparently, this when the Mandalorian shows up for episode 0 of season 3, we kind of are given a whole tone shift. And Boba isn't even in a whole episode of his own show. At first, that didn't bother me as much because, let's face it, when Boba Fett showed up in Mando season 2, he pretty much stole the show. And so for
I
Mando to
mean, when
more
Baby Yoda showed up,
screen
he
time in
stole the
Boba
entire series.
Fett, pretty much until Luke came in at the last episode.
Yeah.
It was basically turning into the Boba Fett show. But go ahead.
Oh no, I agree with that wholeheartedly. My thing is I feel like there was definitely a story that was being told, but it was entirely drowned out in the conversations that we were witnessing. Like the way I was watching it was more for the visuals after I realized I just don't have a lot of emotional connection to Boba Fett other than like cuz he's originally he was like a cool looking like supervillain potential, and then he just disappeared, and then we get his like childhood story in Django. That whole battle with Obi-Wan is epic. But then like after that we just kind of see nothing from him cuz he got eaten. And then we watch his show and it's like you're going to also give us more nothing. Like it was a it's the amount of effort that they put into the show was the amount of effort that they put into introducing him to us as a kid. Oh, Boba, go part of the ship. Like that was the main thing. That's how we knew it was Boba.
Yeah,
Like, oh, his
that's a good.
name's Jango Fett, and we're like, okay, where's Boba? Oh, he's Jango Fett too, just a
Yeah,
clone.
no, that's a good point. I mean, the character's motives just didn't seem to be clear, and it was like Disney was trying to play up this anti-hero, which you could see here on the screen.
Yeah, I think when you put it like that, he's the anti-hero for Disney. He comes off as the nicest gangster in all of history. Like he's supposedly supposed to be a mafioso, but more borderline a landowner from feudal Japan era. Like that doesn't make any sense to me.
Right, and then he doesn't have any consistency either, and his entire he doesn't even have any control of anything.
And
You
why
know,
did
when
he become a nice
recruit,
guy?
right? So they tried to play him up as this anti-hero, but then they make him so inconsistent because he doesn't know what he wants to do. He recruits the Power Ranger Vespa squad, and they are there, I guess. But we don't see the crime lord stuff, and he's trying to be a crime lord without having any crime.
Well,
But
yeah,
moving on a little bit, for the show ender, I thought that this scene, while cool, was also stupid. I mean, he goes back to his palace, and instead of picking his giant fire spray gunship to deal with the giant droids that are attacking, he goes with a flesh, organic, and vulnerable giant scary Rancor. Now, this would make sense to parade through if he was doing it as a show of force and there wasn't a big well, there wasn't really a big battle. I wouldn't even call it a war. It was just kind of a small incident by Star Wars standards. But that was not the time to go for the Rancor. That was the time to go for the ship. Or if you're going to go for the ship, remote pilot the fire spray and have Mando go take control of it, and he can just go rain hell on the rest of Mos Espa. But instead, we were left with giant monsters fighting robots, and it just felt like Robert Rodriguez took a chapter out of the Michael Bay version of storytelling. That he goes, okay, first we're gonna have an explosion, and then we're gonna have a moment on the Sarlacc pit where he escapes, and then there's gonna be this robot, and it's gonna be all cool and stuff, and it's like Michael, those are special effects. Where's the story? And that's really what it feels like with their Book of Boba Fett was all over the place because there was just no consistency. And what was even the point? We got to see Luke, we got to have some fan service, and then we're just left with so that happened. And for what?
I mean, I don't even feel like it was fan service. I feel like it was closer to a fan disservice because like you're taking what fans love, chopping your favorite parts and gutting everything else. Like I feel like the way they're collecting like aggregate data for what's good and what's bad about any general show or like any remake that they're doing or reinventing that they're trying to do, like reinvigorate the group. Like if as a parent and raising a child, like how are you gonna want to show your kids this? They'll be like, we should watch Book of Boba Fett, and you're gonna be like, no,
No.
that we can skip that whole series. And he'll be like, Dad, I watched it on my own time. You were right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not as good. It had a lot of classic Star Wars elements,
Like
and I
visually,
mean this scene watching them side by side was cool and all, and I was enjoying the moment. But again, it's all like, was that all this show was to do? Was to get us hyped up for cool moments?
not
I
to
mean,
mention, if you look at it, I feel like you're snapping the coolest parts of the show, and they're just frames. There's no
exactly.
words, no context, no dot, nothing. We don't know why this is going on or how it's going on. We are definitely jazzed that it's going on, but like, that's it. I could watch it on mute and probably enjoy it more
See,
than with
and that's
trying
what
to figure
shows
out what's being said.
and that's what shows and filmmakers seem to be doing is it they're just giving us like a bunch of of convenient stories to force an outcome, and the outcome is here's all this fan service, and it's
Right.
like, okay, fan service is cool and all, but what's the point? Whereas take something like Spider-Man No Way Home, which I will probably praise until the day I die as being one of the greatest movies ever, because in the nostalgia era, when we're overburdened with nostalgia and remakes and rehashes and just constant member berries, they baited us in with nostalgia and gave us a good movie. And I mean, I will probably do a whole show on No Way Home eventually, but for now, we got to stay somewhat current, which is why we're wrapping up with Star Wars. So, got the last 7 minutes of this segment here. What do you think the future of Star Wars holds?
Well, I think one of the beautiful things about Star Wars, and one of the things that I don't think a lot of people seem to catch on to, but it's the universes that are being created. Like, while some writers and some directors and some filmmakers may not write to our dreamed standard, which, let's be honest, the person that created it didn't even know what to do with it. So, like, he gave us what we wanted and we didn't know we wanted it, but now we know what we want, kind of, and we're not very good at telling people what we want. So at the same, like, I feel like it's a little bit of the fans not telling the right people what they want, and then the right people not looking for the right fans to listen to. And so I think that's one of the big things that we're trying to do here, is be fans to the writers. Like, so the actual writer, or the writers of the shows that we love, can like listen to somebody who actually cares about the content. And so, like, for the universe, I feel like this was more of just another anthology series that does Tatooine more justice. It brings it more liveliness. While I don't really care about any of the individual characters, I do care about the whole city, which is odd. I don't know why I care about a city that doesn't exist unless they put it on the screen. And I think that's something that, though Boba Fett may or may not have intended to do, I think that's something that they hit correctly. And I do want to see more, and I will see more. I love Star Wars. I'm a sucker for it. So, like, they're not going to lose the views, but they're definitely going to keep getting the rhetoric. And I'm here to
Well,
deliver it.
and this show will absolutely be reviewing Obi-Wan when it comes out. And yeah, I do want to take a second to at least highlight some of the positive stuff. I mean, the production quality on these shows is impressive.
Bar none. It's
This is
explosive.
movie
It's
quality. So we have
so beautiful.
yes, and I like the retweaks. I like the retooling on Boba Fett's armor. The black looks way
Costume
better
design.
than the gray. What?
Costume design in these shows are just, it makes me want to freaking live in this world, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, as a show, I would say that Book of Boba Fett by itself, from an objective standpoint, is about C minus passable. But it does actually, no, I'd say it fails and it's a D, because it relies heavily on context. And I think without the context, someone's going to watch the show and go, okay, this is happening, I guess. And again, by the end of it, if you don't have all the fan service context, you're not going to enjoy it. Again, you'll enjoy the art and the production value. It's definitely there, but the story is all over the place. As I said, it makes no sense. They hype up this big war with the Syndicate, and it doesn't happen. It's very small and abysmal by comparison. So I do think that they need to get away from the Skywalker nonsense. It's a big galaxy, and there's all kinds of stories of other people that we could focus on, other aliens, other stories. Just give us a show that's by itself. And I mean, that's what Mandalorian seemed like it started with, except until you get to the end of episode 1, and then it's okay. We're back with the Jedi and the Sith again. Which okay, that is what it is. Um,
I really think the big thing that it could do, and pretty much any writer working on a Star Wars of any kind, whether it's fan fiction or just a random blog, or if it's actually writing Star Wars content for Disney, like take the time to rewatch the movies on your own time, in your own vision, in your own context. Don't watch it with any friends, don't watch it with any family, don't even talk about watching it until you're done watching it. I recently did that, and I loved the sequel trilogy because they finally showed the Force as every other movie wished it could have, because of what the technology that we have to do. And I mean, look at Mandalorian and Boba Fett here. The two of them look awesome. Like, no superhero suit is that dope. Iron Man has nothing on that helmet, and it's iconic.
careful
So,
what
like,
neighborhood you say that in, you get lynched.
strap it, like, strip it down to the main roots, and then write your story around those roots. The first principles of Star Wars, which is there's the Force, and yes, people say there's a light side and a dark side, but they rarely tell you what the gray side is, and that's where your creativity can explode. That's where your imagination can come in, and you can still respect the universe, but you can write a unique story nobody's ever imagined could fit in Star Wars. Because yeah, like you just said, there are so many unexplored, unnamed worlds. We know about the Outer Rim and the Central Core, and according to the trilogy sequel trilogy, the Central Core is gone. So we have no Central Core. We just have Outer Rim, Mid Rim, and whatever was near the Central Core that doesn't count as Central Core. So those are all planets that writers can write about and just make explode, and we can explain so many different things. So though I think Boba Fett was poorly executed, I think it definitely did us a service in giving us another benchmark to just aim higher than Boba Fett. And Mandalorian kills it. Like, those 2 episodes from that the Mandalorian comes in, it made me love it even more, just because like I wanted to check in on Mando. So yeah,
Yeah. So
they're
all
all
right.
good.
So we'll see what season 3 of Mando starts. If it doesn't start with him bringing the kid back to Luke, I don't think it's gonna work for me. But with that, it is time for us to move on